Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dragoncast, home of House of the Dragon. I'm your host and Maester of Ceremonies, Jamie East. Joining me this week for our regular roundup of hot D action are, as always, journalist and writer and the scorched remains of the Hand of the King, Chris Mandle, and this week's very, very special guest. To say we are thrilled to have him is a monumental understatement. This man is one of the stars of House of the Dragon, and until he was recently burned to death by his youngest son, was the actual Hand of the King. Kids, eh? Who would have him? Here, in the slightly singed flesh, is Lord Lyonel Strong himself, Mr. Gavin Spokes. Gavin, how are you doing, sir?
Very good. My feet are still smouldering. There's a little bit of smoke coming off.
Thank you for popping our cast cherry.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me pop it.
Oh, it's been an absolute treat. I remember we spoke very briefly on the red carpet when I was filming for Thronecast, and it's always so tricky. And I wanted to talk about this a bit later, really, because aside from, I guess, like the cast that have been in the press the most, like your Matt Smiths and your Paddies and Rhys Ifans and stuff, you generally don't know who you're speaking to, and even so much as that, as we'll have seen, who we're probably going to be kind of talking about for the next 3 or 4 years, I'm not entirely sure they were even at the premiere, or certainly weren't put on the round robin of talking to press or at any of that. We got Emma and we got and Emily and all the gang, but in terms of the kids and grown up Aegon and whatnot, who I think we're going to meet next week, I don't even remember seeing them on the call sheet. It's pretty crazy. We spoke briefly, but you were pretty humble. You didn't kind of go, "Look, guys, I'm kind of a big deal." You were very you were very good.
Yeah.
How's the experience been for you?
Oh, I think I probably told you on the red carpet. It's been extraordinary. It has been. I put a little message out the other day on social media. It's been the job of a lifetime, and I've been so lucky. I've had an incredible career, and I always get to a certain job and go, "What's the job of a lifetime?" It doesn't get any better than this. But this one really did take the biscuit. It was brilliant in every way. Shooting it, the people behind the camera, in front of the camera, the scripts, being involved with so many brilliant artists it was a joy from start to finish, really. And it filmed half an hour from my house, so I had nothing to complain about, really.
Perfect. And I mean, it must be, like you say, an actor's kind of dream, because not only is it's a great gig, just on the face of it, in terms of profile and all the rest of it, this is you don't think too long before saying yes. But then on top of that, your peers that you're working with are pretty incredible, and the script, you really get to act your bollocks off, don't you?
Yeah. My first day was a small council scene, and it was this scene where we are discussing the succession in Ep 1, when Aemond's just died, and we're all sat around the small council table, and it was my first day, and it was Bill Patterson's first day as well. And we both sat down, and I'd never been on a set that big. That was the first thing. Just the enormous. I got the tour that morning from Ryan and Mig. They took me around the castle, and I was just like, it would have been cheaper to have bought a castle. I'm sure it would have been, because it's an actual castle. And then that was overwhelming. And then I sat down at that table, and there was Rhys sat opposite me. Paddy, who is one of my actual heroes, sat the other side of me, and then Bill and David Horowitz and Graham McTavish, and you're like, okay, got to step up here. Really got to step up. And the weirdest thing is, and my wife always said to me, like, when I did rehearsals for it, I said, I'm really nervous. And she said, you've got to remember, as soon as you start speaking, they do exactly the same thing that you do. And you've been doing it for 20 years. It's just that we know who they are. So you just got to trust the process. And I kind of stuck onto that and thought, yeah, well, they're just actors too. But you do still shit yourself.
And what a great character to play as well. Chris, we've been fans of Lionel since the beginning. Is a rare good guy, seemingly just kind of there just to do good.
Yeah, one of the few people I felt that wasn't trying to fuck everyone over. Like, he was trying to genuinely give some good counsel, and he got burnt alive for his troubles. Definitely would love to have seen more, and I think House Strong seems like such an interesting house, especially because the survivor Laris is so schemy. I mean, Gavin, have you got was there more that you filmed as a family that we haven't seen on the show that maybe?
No, we didn't film any extra scenes. I think the boys did. The boys had I think the boys had a scene in episode 3 And actually, it was interesting because it was around a fire with a couple of other children from other houses. There was like a Lannister kid involved. And it really showed a bond of the two boys and how Harwin was incredibly protective over Laris. And then we didn't have many scenes together. I mean, it's probably helpful in eps 3 to 5 that we don't have that many together because Matt's not that much younger than me. So I think if we were on screen together, you'd have all the fans going, "This is just not possible." So I think that's handy. But we did a lot of discussion about us as a family and how we, just came up with little stories about how maybe Laris's mother had died in childbirth. Did they have the same mother? It was a lot of those sort of questions because Lionel had 2 wives and was quite a fella before. He went to the Citadel and got his 6 links, but after that he liked his ladies.
Yeah. There's something quite biblical about the family because you've got one really brawny son and one.
It's Cain and Abel, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's very like one is very schemy, one is very like physical, and it's interesting which one sort of won out in the end with what happened in episode 6.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly talked about maybe somebody hadn't been given much love as a child. And was there a bitterness that had come through? But Matt is such an intelligent actor. I mean, Matthew
oh my God.
I'm obsessed with that character.
Yeah, it's a great character.
When he sidles up in any scene, I'm just like, oh shit.
We're just like, proper, if he had a moustache, he'd just be twiddling it all the time, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of the Terry Thomas about him.
Yeah, but Matthew plays him so beautifully. You have to play everything so sincerely and honestly, otherwise it just does come across as Terry Thomas. But the writing just leans so heavily into him being, everybody talks about it, the little fingers, etc. He has that malevolence that's really dark and underlying. But Matt is such a likable person. Yeah. I think that's what brings us into him. The fact that Matthew is so likable, that draws us into the character. Because if Matt was horrible, it would come through the camera.
Yeah. Gavin, you also got the honour of being like aged up 10 years in episode 6. I saw. What was that like? You didn't have it quite as bad as Paddy Considine, but you did. I said Paddy, bloody hell. I remember seeing him when we did the first time we filmed a scene together in Ep 6. I was like, fucking hell, mate, you look fucking awful. And he was like, you can talk, where's your hair gone? So like you say about aging me up, I was like, actually, I was aged down for all the other stuff. Right.
Amazing.
So I was given a wig. I had my beard was made darker, and they gave me some more eyebrows. And all they did for episode 6 was whip the hair off and put some grey in.
Now, obviously, Lord Strong is gone. I mean, as far as we know, right?
Cool, that's brutal, Jamie. I mean, just cut to it. He's gone.
I mean, he's gone.
Move
he's
on,
out,
Gav.
he's done. Move on. Do you think? I mean, Viserys is going to miss him, right? He was a genuinely good Hand of the King, and if episode, we'll move on to episode 7 in a second, but I'm going to call it. It was called Driftmark, but I'm going to call it True Colours because it was just like it seemed like everybody in there, all of a sudden, just laid their cards on the table, and the true colours were revealed for every character, including Otto, and probably more than anyone. He really kind of like pulled the kind of cloak back and let us see exactly what he'd been thinking. Viserys is in a whole lot of trouble now that Lionel's gone, isn't he?
Yeah, and I think during that whole journey up until this point, he'd always been suspicious of Otto, but because Viserys is a very loyal man as well. And wants to believe the best of people. Hence why he keeps giving Daemon so many chances. Yeah, Viserys' heart is too good to be a king. He's an honourable man as well. So the two of them, like that scene with the two grandfathers watching their grandchildren play, it's heartbreaking to just see that who is going to look out for him in the future? Who is going to really give a shit? And is it just Rhaenyra? Is Rhaenyra going to be the only one that fights for him because he's his brother? They just see him as somebody going to the grave, I think.
Yeah. That scene has become one of the biggest House of Dragon memes. I'm sure you saw.
What's
you
that?
Must have the scene with you and Paddy looking over at the kids playing just before Kristen.
That's it, really? I didn't know.
Yeah, it's become a massive meme where there's like, isn't it wonderful seeing my grandchildren playing? And you went, our grandchildren, sire. Like, what? You know, it's become an actual meme. So congratulations on that.
I've become a meme. I've made it. That's amazing. Brilliant.
What do you make of? We touched upon Laris. What do you make of him? What's his ultimate goal? He's obviously got a lot of baggage. You know, his disability. He's kind of like clearly not been the favoured son in the Strong household for many years. But he takes revenge onto a whole new level. But now he's kind of got that revenge. What do you think what's his plan?
I have insider sort of knowledge on that.
Oh, no spoilers. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not, let's just say it's not an exact one that's, say, written in the book or anything like that. I think it's things that I've talked about with Matthew in the past. And actually, it's, I like the ambivalence of what is his motive. I think that's what makes him even more exciting. You know, I've also loved in the series how they've done that brilliant thing of every now and then not letting us see the dragon and just letting us hear the dragon. You know, the whole thing of never seeing Jaws, and when you see Jaws, it's not scary anymore.
Yeah.
But I think with Laris, the more he's kind of spoken about, and we don't know what that motive is, the more dangerous and the more scary he is. And like I think you guys mentioned it last week. Well, once he's done his family in, what there's nowhere else to go, is there? There's nothing else to. I think you said it, Chris. Like, what do the stakes become now?
Yeah, I think also with the time jump, it's just he's just operating in the shadows, and I just kind of think whenever something goes down, like I just assume he's involved in some way because his whole thing is actually hiding in plain sight. And when he appeared on the boat in this episode, I was like, he just sort of just like little Phantom of the Opera and sort of drifted into the shot, and I was like, oh God, what's he planning? Like,
it suddenly was like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The deliverer of disaster.
I love it. I love it. It's just good to have an outright schemer who isn't, you know, the Targaryens, I get what's in it for them, but for him, it's like, and it's like Littlefinger. It's like chaos is where you can sort of climb the ladder, and he fucking loves chaos.
Yeah,
he really does.
He likes getting down in the dirty, doesn't he? Whereas Otto, the scheming is cultural, political and it's very opaque. We can see that motive. But with Laris, it's complicated.
Laris gets shit done. That should be his house motto.
Even when you half ask him, you kind of mention vaguely that the kitchen needs tiling. You come back that day, the kitchen's been tiled. It's like, I didn't want the kitchen. I just said the kitchen tiles were looking tired. I thought you wanted the whole kitchen tiling.
Spencer, sorry.
Wow.
Spencer, shut up, man. Bless him, he's deaf.
Dog a hand of the King, Spencer.
Yeah, sorry. He genuinely thinks if there's Spencer, shut up. But he can't hear me. I'm so sorry.
It's all right, no problem.
The best thing
I thought he was in the kitchen. He wakes up in a dream and I think just starts barking at anything.
Brilliant.
Amazing.
Now, before we get stuck into episode 7, here is your weekly reminder. If you're enjoying the podcast, as many thousands of you seem to be, do us a favour. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share it with your mates who might be interested. It really does make a difference, and one day the gods will reward you for it. Right, let's get on with episode 7. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, but in Westeros, an eye for the world's largest dragon is a pretty sweet deal. Chris, what appendage would you give up for a dragon?
I mean, this is the easiest question you've ever asked me because my eyesight is already appalling, and I have to spend so much money on glasses because I have to get such strong lenses. I would happily get an eye taken out, and that seems like a good trade-off for me. It'd be like a seeing eye dragon, essentially, for me.
Yeah. What do we think of the episode? Gavin, episode 7, Driftmark, started off with, like, I'm going to say the best wake ever.
Yeah. There is so much to unpack out of that episode. I think it's my favourite, but I think, like, you know, you guys are probably going to go on to say it does feel like it's getting better each week. And there was so much going on at that wake. The amount of look, there's hardly any dialogue in it, was there? There was so many people just looking over and then them looking at that person thinking, oh Christ, he's here.
I mean, Matt Smith, you know, pound per word, Matt Smith, he's on a right cushy deal, I tell you that. I think he's probably said, he must have said 50 words in the first 7 episodes of House of the Dragon.
I think you're probably right. I mean, to be fair to him, a lot of it is in Valyrian.
That's true.
So, I mean,
that might be the trade-off.
That's the trade-off. You know,
There was a very long, that Rhaenyra Daemon conversation in High Valyrian was
what was that in like
was
episode
long
3,
and
was
a
it?
single. Well, that one today as well when they were
that
just
was a long one,
looking over. When they were just kind of having a natter, it seemed like a single shot as well. That there must have been like phonetic Valyrian written on the backs of like Marlon Brando style, kind of on the backs of rocks. Emma had like on a chest, like on post-it notes. It must have been everywhere.
It's I don't know how they do it. I couldn't do that for Billy.
The wake, I thought it was beautiful. The score, big shout out to the score of the funeral was just like amazing. I loved that shot of the stone tombs because I was like, well, that's not going to float, that's going to sink. And I've spotted a continuity error. I bet there's no. Oh no, shit! There's loads of them down there. That was really nice when it sunk down, and you just saw all the remnants of all of them. I guess it was amazing.
Yeah. So much detail and so much drama in that first 15-20 minutes. It kind of set it up very quickly without any dialogue. I thought it was beautiful, especially when, I think we might come onto this later, but how the kids, the cousins, went up to each other and there was no dialogue. And it was just a hand came out. And it can be so beautifully tender as well, this story, which is always a shock when you go into the Thrones world. If you don't have that human love, you care far less about those characters, and they're so good at putting that detail in.
It was that handhold and the interaction in the wake scene that kind of struck me that they've done it again. In as much as like Game of Thrones previously with season 1 when Neddar got killed in episode 9 and we had the rug pulled from under our feet and it was like, holy shit, no one's safe. This is not what we thought it was. I think they've pretty much done that in this episode again and pulled the rug from under our feet because we've spent 7 hours watching and getting to know all of these characters. And before we came in, we thought it was going to be all about Viserys and Daemon and Rhaenyra. Then we're watching it, it's like, oh no, hang on a sec, it's all about Rhaenyra and Alicent. And then we're watching it, it's like, oh, holy shit, no, it's not even, we're a generation, this is what the time jumps have been all about. It's to get us to the real story, which is about Aegon and all the shitty little kids. Yeah. They're going to grow. This is where like our next 4 or 5 years is going to be spent with these lots. And actually, Rhaenyra and Alicent are going to be the kind of, the sage, wise, conniving cows at the top of the tree, kind of like pulling the strings. And that to me was just like a bit of a revelation. It's like they've bloody done it again. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think this is the episode that really it all started to make sense to me in terms of like, this is actually a show about the children, and everything we've seen so far is a prologue to what informs them as adults. Because what happened this episode was we saw that Alicent and Rhaenyra's soured relationship has actually bled into the next generation, and they've inherited that sort of trauma and that antagonism towards each other, and that is what the show is going to be about. And we have to have we couldn't have started with the kids. We couldn't have even started with them as adults. We've had to see it sour slowly and sort of decay. And so I thought it was really clever. I also thought what was really clever, speaking to the score, the direction, Lena, as an adult, has not actually interacted with most of the cast, and yet you did not feel an absence of grief, or you did not feel like the effects of her death were not felt. It reverberated across everyone. It's really affected House Velarion's relationship with the royal family. It's affected all the children, obviously, because Rhaenyra's kids think that their father is Laenor, and he kind of isn't. And there was just so much. There's just so much at stake in this episode with this funeral. What does it mean? Who's mourning? Who isn't? And I just
they can't resist. They can't resist throwing shade, can they? Even in a eulogy, even in a eulogy, it's like they were still kind of like, well, they were true Valyrian. Their blood was thick, and that's what made Daemon kind of laugh out loud. It's like, guys, the body's not even cold yet. We don't need to start kind of bitching them. Yeah, it's not even wet yet. We don't need to start kind of twisting the knife on poor Rhaenyra. The line, and as we mentioned earlier on, the line was drawn. There was that great shot from Miguel towards the end, and after the kind of the accumulation, the climactic scene between Rhaenyra and Alicent, and is it time to choose a side now? And it probably is. I think, are either of you emotionally leaning towards green or black? And also, can we just say, really annoying that it's green and black, because now all I think of is organic chocolate. I think we mentioned that last week. It's just
blacks and greens were right there. That would have been so much less associated with fair trade chocolate or whatever it is.
Fair trade chocolate bought out by Cadbury's. Yeah.
Oh.
They had their heads turned.
You haven't seen it in shops for a while, I have to say. It's all about Tony's chocolate now, isn't it? Anyway.
Oh, they'd be furious about Tony's chocolate. Yeah. Where are you leaning, Gavin? Where do your emotions lean? I mean, and I guess affection for Lionel. You've got to be on Rhaenyra's side. That's where your bloodline is.
Yeah, I think if Lionel was still about, his allegiances would stay with the Targaryens. It would stay with Rhaenyra. They're his grandchildren, fundamentally. Yeah. So they're his blood. But
did he know that? Do you think?
Oh Christ, yeah, 1000%. First one popped out. Look over at his son.
Mate,
what have you been up to?
We were playing Scrabble. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Me and Lionel I love what you've done with this little church here, Your Grace.
Yeah.
But with that massive Meccano set. No, I think Lionel's very clear. We know where he would be. Gavin, I just like sitting in the middle now. I just want to watch the fireworks. I suppose I would lean more towards the Targaryens and Corlys and what. Actually, who I was really rooting for by the end of the episode was Rhaenys.
Right. Yeah.
Watching what she thinks is both of her children gone.
Yeah.
Her first
she's had a rough old series.
And and her sitting there and saying, "This is you driving for this. It's not me for the throne. It's you. You bloody men. You're just you're dicks, all of you."
But that's been their. I mean, I do worry about their relationship now. First, when I interviewed them before, I was kind of like, you guys look super strong, like a sexy couple, still very much in love, kind of this. But actually, now it's kind of like there's a real harbored resentment there about Corlys clinging on to this fantastical idea of something that ended 30 years ago. Chris, part of me thinks that they're gonna part ways as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Corlys, I think the pursuit of righting this wrong is going to be what does him in, because Rhaenys has made peace with it. Like, I was overlooked, and I'm okay with that. And he's going. They've married both their children to Targaryens, and to their mind at least, ended with both of them dying. And I think that's a really, really tough thing to swallow. And then Rhaenyra's children, everyone knows, are Strongs. I mean, they're bastards, but their father was a Strong. So they've even.
I'm sat right here. Don't forget.
But you know what I mean? It just feels like they've hedged their bets and they've lost, and they haven't even got. I mean, what's interesting about you asked who's on what side? For me, it's got to be the blacks. It's got to be Rhaenyra, because that's what the king wanted, and Alicent is the one that I think is lashing out, and is the one that is the one that is hot-headed, that is trying to. She was the one that when her son lost an eye said, "I think the only safe thing to do for me is to cut out another child's eye." That seems to me like the logical thing, and everyone was like, "That is not the just
even for thrones. This is no."
Yeah, but she was like, "Well, this is obviously the only way we're gonna make her." It's like you can't. So I think I'm definitely Team Rhaenyra, but I also think what was interesting this episode was what Corlys said. It doesn't matter essentially if the boys are not of our blood.
It's a great line. Yeah.
We are the ones that will decide what they are. We have our name, and that's all that matters. Yeah. And I think he's a guy that has sailed around all the seas, and he comes back with all these stories. And he is a bit of a mythology, a bit of a myth maker. He can decide what happened when he was at sea. He won't tell people about the time like he got the shits from eating some seafood. He will tell people about conquering and all these amazing treasures. And you look at that castle they live in, and it just looks like the sort of tat you'd buy in TK Maxx, these big seashells and things. But he's like, no, I got this from a pirate, and I won it, and I killed, So I think it's really interesting. He's like, these boys are our blood, and we will decide whether they are or not. It doesn't matter. We don't get the DNA test out here. So I thought it was really interesting. I think this pursuit of that is going to be his undoing.
Yeah.
Definitely.
He had two of the best lines in the whole episode in that scene. He said, "What is this brief mortal life if not the pursuit of legacy?" And that, he coined that phrase that you mentioned there, Chris, which was, "History does not remember blood; it remembers names."
Yeah, it's no mistake that they used those two lines for the first proper trailer. I think it was the first two lines in the first trailer.
That is
so.
True.
In the teaser trailer, it was Matt walking through, and he said, "Fire, blood." I can't remember something.
Yeah.
I can't remember Matt's lines, but in the
knowledge.
official trailer that came out a few months later, it was those lines at the top of the. Yeah.
Amazing. Good.
Quite
good
Shakespearean,
knowledge,
I thought. It was very,
yeah,
very theatrical.
really good. And then it didn't take long for Daemon to get the horn again. Quick stroll along the beach. The lighting, they did the lighting was great. I couldn't. Did we think was it dawn or dusk? I could not work out whether we were like early in the morning or just before dark. I think probably early in the morning. I'm kind of thinking, but it was like Coldplay Yellow video, where Chris Martin's like wandering along the beach, and it's that blue hue was amazing. Presumably a filter, because the photos that we saw of that were like broad daylight leaked things. So I love the kind of the colorist. What do you call it? The grader. The
grading.
The grading on that was just really beautiful.
Yeah, agreed.
But again, I thought the speech from Rhaenyra there was beautiful. It was kind of like it was the most kind of honest I think we'd heard her be. She seems to just really expose herself emotionally to Daemon. That there is undoubtedly a connection there, and actually, incest aside, I think their relationship's actually quite beautiful. I think it's really nice.
It was a beautifully written scene. You're right. It felt Elizabethan. There was a touch of the Crown about it. It had real. It wasn't as robust in terms of its vocabulary. It wasn't quite as. It felt more delicate than a lot of her dialogue has been before. And I think that was one of the first scenes they actually shot on the whole series. And I could be wrong on that, but I thought it was beautifully played.
It was really nice. There was, Rhaenyra blaming Daemon for abandoning her, and he was just like, "You were a child," and she was, it was just really nice. And I think maybe that was Daemon's first time he'd realised that actually how much Rhaenyra cared for him.
Yeah,
it was great.
I thought it was amazing, also given Emma Darcy and Matt Smith haven't been together on the show, and when they were reunited at that funeral, it felt like a reunion. It felt like those characters reconnecting, and I think that speaks to casting. I think it speaks to the way that relationship's built over the first episodes prior to this. But I thought it was phenomenal, and I think the reason we're rooting for this uncle and niece is because that they feel like equals. They feel like they have been so lonely in these sham or political marriages that they see each other and they're like, no, we are the best match. Like, come on. And I thought, they're so convincing that they make you root for incest, which is incredible.
It's so weird, isn't it?
Well, let's not count it. Let's not,
let's not be too hasty here.
Okay,
let's not be too hasty here. I've got a cousin.
Was it Stephen Fry once said? He said, "I'll try anything once apart from Morris dancing and incest." So.
And I bet he's tried Morris dancing.
Yeah, I'm looking for the bells in the back of your room and the hankies and the flowers.
But as as I said, like true colours kind of came to the fore, and so there were two speeches. There were two kind of discussions with Rhaenyra and Daemon. There was that quite gentle, romantic one. And then there was the one later on as they were watching the dragon and the ship leave Driftmark, where they egged each other on into not only the kind of twist, or as we were led to believe, the murder of Laenor, but then the realization that of what a force of nature the pair of them would be, and actually deciding there and then to rule through fear and make people fear what they do. Let them assume that that's what they've done, because that is how they will win, is by fear and people being scared shitless of them. I thought was really good, and we saw a fresh side of Rhaenyra then, didn't we? This is going to be the longest episode ever, and I'm breaking my rule of a podcast episode being over an hour long, but I make no apologies because there's so much to get in. We saw an amazing wedding. You know, Daemon and Rhaenyra got married, and actually it felt like a wedding that was full of love and amazing dip-dyed cloaks. Just a big shout out to the costumers there. That was a really kind of visually striking kind of wedding. But I genuinely felt pleased for them. They felt like they deserved and wanted to be together, which you don't often see.
Yeah, I thought it was beautiful actually, and I think that the ritualistic blood on blood thing is really gruesome. But it feels like they're both entering a bit of a new phase, and I think for Rhaenyra, she's been quite passive since we like last episode. It's all been very like, oh, I don't know what to do, and she's now gone, no, do you know what? The dragon's woken up. I'm gonna be weird. I'm gonna be a bit of a freak. I'm gonna scare people. I'm gonna marry my uncle, and like people are gonna talk about me, and that's a good thing. I can go and scare them shitless. And I thought it was really, really interesting that they're kind of like doubling down. And I thought it was beautiful, and they just seem like such a good match in a lot of ways. So what I think will be interesting is whether they have children. Like,
well, yeah. I mean, looking at the cast list, I'm not entirely sure they do, but
hope there's some, because sometimes there's characters like we've had like Baela and Rhaenyra and Helaena. I want like, in this every now and then you get like a sort of Jason, or like, I want them to have like, I want Chris. Chris would be nice. Nice easy name.
Yeah.
Another
Jamie.
Another Jamie.
Yeah. But not another Huey, Dewey, and Louie, please.
Connor says Bob. Bob Targaryen.
But Bob Targaryen, that's great, isn't it? Yeah. It's just,
yes.
Oh, mate, I've heard you need some plumbing doing. I'm Bob Targaryen, mate. Yeah, 5 stars on rated people. Yeah.
The soldering is excellent.
His soldering's excellent. Dracarys. It's like, look at the seam on that, mate.
We bring out the baby dragons for the soldering.
Yeah.
But that ceremony was edited in a signature Game of Thrones style, where there were 3 things happening at once. We saw the wedding, which was the accumulation of this conversation that was going on between Daemon and Rhaenyra, where they were saying one thing but meaning another, and then we saw the event of Laenor's apparent murder at the hand of his lover, and the anguish and trauma that the Velaryons suffered as a cause of that. It was a beautifully pulled together kind of trio montage thing where as it just slowly unfurled itself to you, and actually I still didn't until Laenor got on the boat with his buzz cut. Still had no idea that he was still alive. I thought, my God, that boyfriend really is a fucking prick.
Yeah, I thought we stood behind Carl. We liked Carl last week, and then I thought, oh my God, he's just like killed him for no reason. I thought it was really good that they showed us them getting on the boat, because I could see a situation where they didn't show that, but I'm really glad they did, because when I watched it, I rewatched that like a couple of times, because I was like, wait, Daemon's convinced Carl to kill Lena, and then you realise, oh no, they've done what Kristen wanted Rhaenyra to do, which is to abandon their titles and just run away. And she rejected that. Laenor's kind of gone, do you know what? We can't win as long as this legitimacy thing is going on. Like, I just want out. And I thought, yeah, fair play. I thought anytime Daemon puts his murder cloak on, that hooded cloak, anytime he puts that on, I'm like, shit, it's about to go down. This is going to be good. So I loved seeing that.
It's like, it's like a really bad disguise, isn't it? It's just like, when Robin Hood kind of like puts on the kind of like old hag's cloak to kind of go begging in the cartoon. Yeah. It's just like, we can see you, Robin Hood, mate. Yeah.
It's like a celebrity with a hat with a cap on.
Exactly.
Oh, you can't recognise me.
Leonardo DiCaprio in
He,
Starbucks.
he says that having always wearing a cap, but that's because I'm bald and I've got stupid hair. But here's a little thing for the funeral. The wedding between Rhaenyra and Daemon. Did you clock who one of the maester was who stood there?
Right, so I was going to bring this up. I think I've just sussed it. It was Phil Daniels, right?
The legend that is Phil effing Daniels.
I saw him in the credits, and I was like, "Shit, where's so that he's in it? Is he just in it for that episode? Do we know, or is he now a maester?"
Well, I think if you're getting Phil fucking Daniels on board, I think he's probably going to get a bit busier.
Ooh,
good. That's what we like to.
He's just oh man.
It sometimes feeds the dragons too.
Very good, Jamie.
Hey!
Very good. He's here all week. Try
on.
the veal.
wow.
Chris, that was a reference to Park Life by Blur, which I think was released probably the year before you were born.
Yeah.
Oh,
God. I sometimes feed the dirty pigeons and the sparrows too. Gives me an enormous sense of well-being. You must have heard that.
I have.
Come
I'm
on.
just trying to put two and two together.
But then he's happy for the rest of the day.
So Phil Daniels is the guy that sings
Wait.
that
Okay,
in Park
the
Life.
guy from Park Life oversaw the wedding.
Yes.
Well,
correct.
he was stood at the side with the children.
Right. An accessory to the Targaryen on Targaryen action, essentially.
Correct.
What? That's
Correct.
so weird. Yeah, that really did go right over my head as a dangerously young person. I just
disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
It's so interesting about all of these characters. So the amount of grey that they throw up in them, and that goes back to George and the books. Really, I mean, each of those characters. I think everybody on those pages is so grey and not black and white. And you probably say this every single Dragoncast, but they never do what you kind of expect them to do.
No, they really don't, and that's what makes watching it such a joy. You know, it's when anyone can go any way. You know, we would have been equally unsurprised if Rhaenyra had not done that and had decided to stick with Laenor, and that her and Daemon had kind of were ships that again passed in the night. We would have been unsurprised at that. So and I guess that's testament to that character writing, really. But we've been waiting for a dragon scene. We thought it was going to come from a battle with Daemon or whoever in the sky, and I'm sure we'll get that at some point. But seeing Aemond kind of climb up on that beach and stand like tiny little Aemond next to huge Vhagar, and it was just electric. It was just phenomenal. We finally saw, I think, I felt for the first time what it must be like to stand next to a dragon. Do you know what I mean? It was just incredible.
And they've really done that on this series. Getting to know these dragons like they're the family pet has been far more interesting than I think I ever found them in previous incarnations of dragons.
Well, you never saw anyone get on one, did you?
No.
They just appeared on, you know, and I'm sure budget and technology wasn't what it was 10 years ago.
Rhaenyra and Baelor thought one of them would inherit their mother's dragon. And this is one of those things where it's like, you can't sit and wait for stuff to happen. You have to take what's yours. That's what Alicent's taught her kids. Aemond takes this dragon. I mean, the thing that blew my mind was, yet again, Westeros is so advanced in many ways, but they haven't thought of like an attachment to sort of hook you onto the thing.
There was just like tons of ropes, like really willy-nilly, just kind of like, it was a bit, like a kid learning his shoelaces.
It was like
just a mess.
some sort of knot, some sort of like harness. Because at one point he's just hanging off the thing. He's literally hanging off when it flies up. And I thought, guys, you've almost invented cesareans. Like, you're so close to just inventing the seatbelt. Just please, some sort of lumbar support. Anyway, I thought that whole thing was amazing. I mean, this is like the biggest dragon, isn't it? This is one of the oldest dragons. I think I saw online, because a lot of fans share like scales models of the dragons, and Vhagar is like twice as big as Matt Smith's dragon, Syraxes.
Right. Okay.
This is like the big kahuna, and I think Aemond claiming him and having them on Team Green, that is a huge, huge loss. But it was just amazing watching him sort of just smashing into bits of the castle and sort of just
but when the first climb as well, where you saw actually how high up
Yeah.
He was hanging on. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it was electric, wasn't it?
Really
Yeah.
good.
I don't want to give any comparisons. It's like the first time when you see the starship in Star Wars, the first time in that first shot when
the Imperial
enormity.
starship goes overhead.
Exactly. And it's the first time I've actually genuinely felt that they were really real. I shouldn't say that, but in the other series, you're like, oh, I'm watching a dragon. But now I'm beginning to care about the dragons immensely.
Yeah.
And
Well, Miguel talks about giving each of them a different animal kind of personality. One's like a cow, another one's like a wolf, another one's like I think something or other. They very specifically sat down with the designers and gave each of them a very different personality.
You can see that that Matt Smith's dragon is sort of way more serpentine. It has that incredible sort of long neck. Yeah, Cyrus.
Yeah.
And slightly more snaky, isn't he? Longer.
Yeah, and those sort of little like hind wings. It's really interesting, and I think you have to do that when you've got so many of them. So I thought that was really stunning, and it's just amped up the tension. They've stole one side of the family has stolen the dragon from the other side. That's just good.
And why I think this episode, in particular, that moment was so important was it's similar to how how in episode 1 of Game of Thrones the seeds were planted for things that just continued for the next decade. I think that act that Aemond did is what is going to harbour some of the biggest grudges and cause some of the friction that's going to last for generations. I think because we saw the immediate aftermath, which was a pretty kick-ass fight between a whole bunch of kids. Like, they did not fuck about. There were broken noses, there were rocks in the heads, and then, of course, amazing kind of like slash of the eye. Can I ask you, Gavin, what is the fake blood made out of on House of the Dragon? Because it seems very gloopy and lovely.
I couldn't tell you. I could find out.
Is it sweet? Did you ever come across it?
No, I saw a load of people with it on. I never really went over and licked their face, to be honest.
Wasted opportunity.
COVID shoot. Yeah. COVID shoot. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. No, I think sugar is involved, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. But the use of blood, like they do it so well, like dripping through the kind of fingers on the hands. It was absolutely.
The hair and makeup team are exceptional, and they're all brilliant.
Producer Connor is saying it's corn syrup usually. So it is, like edible and probably quite delicious.
How he knows that? Who's he been stabbing?
Yeah, Connor, how do you know that? Yeah, you've been faking some injuries for insurance claims. He has secrets, he says. And but that scene, that moment of Aemond losing his eye, I think is going to be the catalyst for everything moving forward, because it opened not only his eye socket but a whole can of worms as well, didn't it? Because it led to just that incredible scene in where was it, in the throne room?
Yeah, in the Driftmark throne room, I think.
In the Driftmark throne room, which it could have been an episode in itself. It felt just brilliant.
Yeah,
it was just like.
And the great thing about one of those physical impairments is that it will always be a visual reminder. As a torch, will constantly always be there to be shown. Look, this is why we're doing it. This is. Yeah, it's on his face.
Hand. It's Jaime Lannister's hand. It's all of those things, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. So that scene, let's go into that scene, which could have been either the making or the downfall of Alicent Hightower. What do we think? She just completely lost it. My question is Viserys mad, or is he just in denial? Because as his son, as Aegon pointed out, just like. Everyone knows. Look at them. It's just kind of like, and we're all like, it's like, why are you the only guy that won't say it out loud? Is it because of treachery? Is it because of treason? Is it because of the calamitous effect that would have on everything that he holds dear and is set in stone? Or is he genuinely just going a bit mad and can't see it? What do you think, Gavin?
Well, do you want an answer that I've kind of discussed with people?
Yeah. Be open. I mean, as long as there's no spoilers. Yeah.
If I feel like, and I wouldn't want to speak on Paddy's behalf, but I have vague recollections of discussing with him that if he lets this come out, then everything goes to shit. So it was kind of the former thing you were saying, is like, I'm trying to keep everything together. That's what he's doing the whole series, just trying to keep everything together. You know, one of his last lines in that scene, "We are a family." You know, we have to stay together, because he can just see what's coming, and he knows. He did. I think personally, he clearly knows it's not insanity, but he's had to make himself believe it.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's got, because otherwise, it's game over.
Yeah.
And what would happen? Just out of interest, Rhaenyra would presumably still be the heir, but then she'd almost certainly just get killed by someone. I mean, he kind of presumes that Alicent would just do it, wouldn't he?
I think like Daemon would probably have a better claim to the throne over Alicent's first son, I think, and he definitely doesn't want that. I mean, no. Yeah, I think I agree with Gavin. I think Viserys has ruled during a fairly quiet, peaceful period, and he's like damned if he's gonna let everything go to shit this close to, he's clearly like not long for this world. He's obviously just trying to hold on as long as he can and prevent them from turning on each other. But it's such a knotty conundrum, because he knows that having a female heir has never happened before, and that the people might not like it. But he said earlier, several episodes ago, he said, I never thought I would marry again. I never thought I would have a male heir. So he's made that decision and has doubled down on that decision, kind of out of love for his daughter, I suppose. But it's clear with everything that's going on. I mean, this big fight, Alicent was going for it, and I really thought watching it, she's going to kill one of Rhaenyra's kids. That's what's going to happen. And I think when you see how feral everyone is getting, you think, God, once Viserys is not around, this is going to get really bad. It was only Viserys threatening. He said, if anyone speaks of this again, I will cut out their tongues. And he looked at Alicent when he said it, like as if he would do that to his own wife.
Yeah. Can I throw in something in there as well in that scene, which I found really exciting, was the tension between Sir Harold Westerling and Sir Kristen Cole, between Graham and Fab. I mean, those
there was
tensions.
That little look.
Those allegiances.
What did you make of that look? Because there was the moment where Alicent demanded that Kristen take one of the eyes of Rhaenyra's children, and Kristen quite rightly said, "I'm your protector. I'm not your kind of like, your gun for hire," and he got given a little look, didn't he? What do you think that look was? Was he saying that was the right call, or you twat, you should have done that? What do you think, Gavin?
Oh, my computer's about to die. Good question.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I need to plug it in. Just seeing it's got 10% left. Thought the fucking thing was plugged in. It's going really well with the dogs, and the computer's about to die.
Well, I would just say that, I think it's really interesting. They're Kingsguards, right? They're the Kingsguards. They're the Sworn Protectors, and they had a
bad episode.
It's like, where's the line, right? Because also, like, Alicent is not the she's not the king, she's not the queen, she is the queen regent, right? She's married to the king.
Queen consort,
Queen consort, yes. So it's like,
come on, we should know that after the past few weeks. Bloody hell, Chris.
Oh, has anything been going on with our royal family? I haven't noticed. I've been on holiday. I think it's interesting where Kristen Cole's loyalties lie, and I think we saw for the first time that he's not just an attack dog, is he? He's got to stand for something.
So what did you make of that look then between the two Kingsguards, Gavin? Was it a look of approval, or actually that was a?
I don't think I can speak much more on this, because there will be spoilers. But I think the look of just knowing that there is issue and conflict, and whether it's disagreement or approval, I think there's too much to be. There's no, like you say, there's no shots in this ever wasted. No. So the fact that those two were highlighted at that point is a reflection of like, okay, well, where the hell did the Kingsguard's allegiance is going to fall in this? Because the Kingsguard is sworn to.
Which suggests that at some point there's going to be a standoff, and decisions are going to have to be made. One would assume. Exactly. You don't need to say anything more.
Yeah. We saw in Game of Thrones that they were, the Gold Cloaks ended up being loyal to Littlefinger, and they betrayed Ned, didn't they? So there's always someone paying someone, and I think what is probably not clear at this point is who at the core has got greater sway over them. My feeling would be that Otto is probably the one who is giving them more money, or like feeding them. I don't know who Master of Coin is in House of the Dragon. That was obviously Littlefinger in Game of Thrones. But...
It's Beesbury.
Right.
Bill
Oh,
Paterson.
yeah. So, it'd be interesting. That's kind of where you follow the money and you might find out who is loyal to who.
Okay, we'll come on to Otto in a second, but let's just talk about Alicent for a minute, because she really, like you say, she took a shot. She in the best/worst possible way. It doesn't feel like there's no going back between her and Rhaenyra now. Rhaenyra, and I think Rhaenyra was happy that it had happened. She whispered in her ear, and now they see you as you are, which was just like, and that's when Alicent was just like, oh shit. It was a real kind of it's a real pulling of it was Scooby-Doo pulling the mask off, wasn't it?
Yeah.
At the end, it was just like, there's your real Alicent. And and if it hadn't been for Aemond saying, "Do not mourn me, mother. It was a fair exchange. I lost an eye, but gained a dragon," which was a great line as well. Then it felt like he kind of saved her from that. But feels like she's really fucked it with Viserys. Like you said, Gavin, there was he was just like he when he questioned Aegon and Aemond about the origins of the rumor. He realised that it had come from Alicent. And that she'd been feeding her children with this treacherously awful lie. So she's almost out of the will, and not only that, but she's now made herself a sworn and very vocal enemy of the heir apparent. And
it was interesting when he went over to because Aemond threw Aegon under the bus and said it was him. He told me.
Yeah.
And he was like, "What the fuck?"
But that's classic. That's classic brotherly,
isn't it?
That's a classic brotherly tactic. The amount of times my brothers have done that to me.
Yes, quite. Well, I don't know, but I'm assuming because we've all got brothers that do that.
Yeah, they're shits.
Yeah, but when Viserys went over to him and said, "Look, who's told you this?" And I was like, "Dad, we all know it." And him standing up to his father as the king. Is that the first time we see him turning into that conversations he's had with his mum when he was caught wanking off at the door, when she says, "You're going to be the king. We're preparing you to be the king." And is that the first time he's gone, "Look, if I am going to be the king, I need to fucking stand up to the present king." Mm-hmm. So that was a nice little exchange as well. Again, it's these little steps they add in. It's just such clever writing.
How much in the writing? I don't know if you've ever spoke to Miguel or to Ryan about that side of it during it. Do they go back and replant those seeds? How linearly do they write the episodes, do you think? Do you think after a while they go, actually what we need is a little exchange between Viserys and Aegon to kind of like just to reinforce that? Let's go and put that in episode 7 and because that will foreshadow. Did you ever have a conversation like that?
Yeah, quite a few. I'm pretty chatty with quite a few of the writers on it, and they are balls deep in writing at the moment, but they spend a long time around that table discussing outlines of episodes, outlines of series. They each go away, write those episodes, and they come back and then go through that linear of how they then tie in each of those individual stories throughout. What I found fascinating is when we shot, there would be I can't speak for maybe Paddy, Matt, Millie, Emily, top 5 or 6 in the cast. I mean, they had some line changes, but we didn't often get big scene changes that were sort of thrown in. The new scenes were chucked in because they thought, we need a bit of this, we need a bit of that. Sometimes there'd be like an odd line or maybe an odd shot. They thought, you know what, we need to pick up the narrative of Aegon here, or that would often happen in the room when we're shooting. But those scripts arrive. They're pretty much word for word how it comes out. And I was given the scripts, I don't know, maybe April or May, maybe May of 21, and not much of them changed until I finished shooting in the following February.
Wow. That's confidence for you,
isn't it? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is this the point of no return for Alicent? What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think it is. She's, they're flying their flags at this point, right? They're digging in, doubling down. last episode, Rhaenyra said, "Why don't we marry one of my sons to your daughter, Helaena?" Which she said we'll think about. And we found out in this episode that Alicent's marrying her son to her daughter. Aegon is marrying Helaena to kind of strengthen the line, I think, but also to prevent Rhaenyra sort of marrying into the family. And I think it's the point of no return because she's doubled down. And I think the reason she's able to get away with behaving like this is, as we said earlier, Viserys is still the king. He is weaker than he's ever been. Aegon is standing up for his father. I think there's a real turning point coming, and I think she's going to have to double down on this because it's kill or be killed, or conquer or be conquered, something like that. And I think it's really hitting a boiling point now.
She's got very few allies. In fact, she's only got 2 allies from what we can see. Laris is one of them, and then someone who made a welcome return, maybe not for Viserys, but certainly for the audience. Otto Hightower came back as Hand of the King, and seeing as we've got previous Hand of the King, the kind of interim Hand of the King with us. I'm going to
10 years, mate.
Yeah.
You did 10 years, actually. You
Interim?
did 10 years. 10 years is not shabby.
No,
10 years
10
is
years.
not too shabby.
I lost my hair in that job.
I've lost a pint of blood, mate. Give us a break. Yeah. We thought that this week's wisdom would be all about Hand of the King. So if you'll excuse me for 1 second. The Hand of the King is chief advisor to the Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and is the executor of the king's commands. The Hand's typically seen as the second most powerful man in the realm. However, many Hands have had the reputation of being the true power behind the throne. Many see it as a challenging role with great responsibility. A popular saying goes, what the king dreams, the hand builds. That's a good saying. But the lowborn version is much more colourful. The king shits and the hand wipes. That ever happen, Gavin? Maybe off camera. The hand's duties include commanding the king's armies, drafting laws, dispensing justice and generally managing the day-to-day running of the kingdom. The hand also sits on the small council and will run the council if the king isn't present. The Hang may also act on behalf of the king if he's indisposed and even sit on the Iron Throne while doing so. The badge of office always includes a hand and each appointee can design his own. Now, during the conquest, King Aegon I proclaimed his half-brother Orys Baratheon to be my shield, my stalwart, my strong right hand. Because of Aegon's description, Orys is regarded to have been the first hand of the king. In the ultimate irony, Orys resigned after losing a hand in the First Dornish War. Oops. Many hands have achieved greatness. Lord Osmond Strong was the hand that oversaw construction of the walls of King's Landing, and Lord Roger Baratheon was seen as the true power behind the throne while serving under King Jaehaerys. But for other hands, the role's been a poisoned chalice. King Maegor the Cruel executed his hand and own father-in-law Lord Lucas Harroway and his entire family after his daughter Queen Alice Harroway was accused of infidelity. Infidelity seems like quite a tame thing to be accused of in Westeros, but there we go. Sir Lyonel Strong served King Viserys Targaryen wisely and with honour for over 10 years, as you rightly said, Gavin, before being tragically burned with his son Harwin at the recent fire in Harrenhal. The fire was blamed on the curse of Harrenhal, but other non-mystical suspects have been rumoured, but as of yet the true culprit has not been identified. Sir Otto Hightower now steps back into the position he formerly held to once again serve the ailing King Viserys. Whether or not Viserys will be the final king that Otto serves, only time will tell. And yes, we're ending it. I'm saying only time will tell. Hand of the King is a good position to have is in Westeros. It's pretty. I can't think of a kind of modern day equivalent. Certainly not in today's government. You're the puppet master pretty much, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think during a time where a king and you can see it when Lionel and Viserys are watching the grandchildren. You can see that these two people have now become friends. They've become quite pally. And they trust each other. Lionel had no agenda. I think everything changes when a hand has his own agenda or their own agenda. That's when it becomes blurry.
They have to be. They have to come close, don't they? Because it's everything is exposed from. We saw The only person that really knew how ill Viserys was at the beginning was Otto. You know, he knew about Daemon and Rhaenyra early on, and had to have. You're the one that has to have the awkward conversations, right?
Yeah.
Now, Otto's back, and there was always. Sorry, mate. Whilst you were still scabbing over, he was already there, putting a brooch back on his cloak. He was always quite a tricky character to work out. He seemed to be relatively noble. He certainly, we knew that he was very keen on Alicent and Viserys marrying. Wear your mother's dress was the classic. Was the classic line from just
with his head down, writing it. Beautiful choice
exactly.
from Rhys. That. Wear your mother's dress.
Just, lovely. And so we knew that there was a sadistic side to him, but not until he visited Alicent, where you thought he was going to give her the mother of all bollockings, and in fact, it was just like, you're on the right course. You have impressed me. I never knew you had it in you. This is the way to go. Was a bit of a kind of like, holy shit. This is new ground. What did you think to that, Chris?
Yeah, I thought he said something to her which was like, I didn't know you were capable of this, or I didn't know you had this in you. And she showed a side of her that he maybe didn't even know was there, which possibly sort of is why he married her into the family, just to sort of like use her a little bit, and now maybe sees that she's a player in the game in her own right, and she'd actually be quite good at this. And I think it was really fascinating to see. I mean, I would love to see more of Rhys, because I just think he's such a wonderful actor, and Otto has not been in a lot this show. He's kind of been around. We haven't got a lot of time with him. So for quite a few weeks, I've been saying, I think he's genuinely quite a good person, and I sort of stand by that in a way. But since he's become a grandfather,
what do you mean you stand by?
Like he's like looking out for. Well, okay, let me just clarify. So far, he's been looking out for number one, which is what everyone does. What I think has changed is that he's now got grandchildren who are on the in line to inherit the throne, and so
he's got actual
now I
skin
think there's
in the game.
A sense of him being a little bit more manipulative. Not that he wasn't before, but I think again it's like these people who aren't Targaryens, in my sort of take on it anyway, is that they're sort of like very powerless to fight against these like superpowers. And now there's a sense that he's kind of in. His children are kind of part Targaryen, and I think he's suddenly like, actually, I can swing this back towards me. And I think we're starting to see him potentially like counseling his daughter on how to sort of be a bit of a schemer in her own right. That might have been happening during the time jump or since he came back between episode 6 and this one. But I think it's really cool to see Alicent being a bit of a schemer. I think it sort of suits her in a way, actually.
I was just going to say to what Chris was saying about Otto's desire, and is it a personal one? In episode 3, there's this brilliant scene between him and his brother, who's actually the lord, the older brother of the Hightower family. And he says to him, look, you've got a son who's a Hightower, and he fundamentally could be the king. He's the firstborn boy. So a Hightower can be king. And I think, for me, there's a shift. It's like, holy shit, yeah. Because the Hightowers were one of the great families of Westeros. Old Town was still seen as probably the greater of the two between King's Landing and Old Town. And I wonder how much of it is personal. You're right, there's certainly an investment because there's his own blood and flesh, but how much of it is to do with this fucking thing that men are obsessed with legacy, which Corlys banged on about. So I think there's a dual motive maybe going in there now.
Yeah, I mean, Alicent was on the brink. She was remorseful. She was like, I've ruined this. I've disgraced myself. I've ruined Aegon's claim. It was Otto that pulled her back from that and said, no, his line was, we play an ugly game, and now for the first time I see you have the determination to win it. And then gives her this amazing lesson in politics, sacrifice, firepower. Vhagar on our side is worth 1,000 eyes, which is just like fucking great line. And it's true, the Hightowers now have a dragon. And not only a dragon, the biggest, oldest dragon. That is pretty terrifying, isn't it? And just a note, as you know, Connor is the oracle of all things House of Dragon, and gets me out of more scrapes than anyone watching Thronecast will ever know. Helaena predicted that Aemond would lose an eye but gain a dragon.
Is
she a dreamer?
Right? In episode 6.
Is she a dreamer? And that's what, you know. And we've spoken a brief time. And Gavin, I'm sure you know this, but so no spoilers. But and I've mentioned this a few times. Is the one element of Thrones world, the Thrones universe that I've been missing, is the magic element. Is the warging? Is the Bran? Is the three-eyed raven? The all of those kind of those little things. I really kind of like loved those because it didn't matter then in terms of war. It didn't matter how strong you are. If someone can warg, or if someone knows or has visions, or if there's a witch or a smoke baby or whatnot. What do you think? Could Helaena be a dreamer? Does she possess those skills? Is it the first time we're going to see that? What do you think, Gavin? Am I teasing the spoiler out of you too much?
Yeah, you definitely are.
Oh,
But to be fair, there is only so much I know of what's going on in the future. But I agree with you. There is a certain amount of that magic that I want to come. I hope it will come. It might come. It might not come. But
it has to, though. It exists in it already, the wall is there. The children of the forest are there somewhere. The people are warging, and the three-eyed raven's still there somewhere. All of these things are in the world. We just haven't bumped into
the beautiful
them yet.
thing about this world is that slow burn. It's been a slow burn to get us to the point of now we see a civil war about to start. It's taken us 7 episodes to get there. Will it take us 7 episodes to get to magic again? Will it? Not 7 episodes, 7 series. Who knows? I mean, I have no idea what they've got lined up or thinking of in the future with other series, but there is definitely so much food to be munched on.
There is a very exciting theory that I saw on Twitter. Jamie mentioning warging. So in episode 6, there was a couple of times where, we've seen them in a few episodes, these rats scuttling around people's bedrooms.
Oh yeah, someone mentioned
there is
this, didn't
a
they?
Theory that I saw online that is that Laris Strong, because how Strong are one of the oldest families, and where they're from in Westeros, there is a lot of weirwood trees and that sort of thing, is that Laris is able to warg, and he wargs into the rats in the castle to get dirt on people, which is a little out there.
It's a stretch,
but isn't that? Because I keep seeing these rats, and I'm like, Gavin said this. Not a shot is wasted. I'm like,
There was also a shot, the spider being hidden in the oyster shell.
That's what.
Was a curious
Helaena
kind
said
of.
That, right?
They did that. You saw them doing that at the beginning, at the wake.
Oh, yeah.
Helaena, I think, was hiding a spider in an oyster shell.
Yeah.
So, again, she predicted Aemond losing an eye and gate. Was she casting a spell? Was she doing something?
Yeah, there's something about her that's very...
She crushed the spider, didn't she? She crushes it.
I think, she kind of put the spider in, then closed the shell on top of it. I don't know whether it was crushed or just... But yeah, like you say, not a shot wasted. So that clearly means something to someone, somewhere. Loved it. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We'll go through. We've had so many kind of people write in and comment, and we always forget to kind of say, first of all, to say thank you, but also to kind of give a shout out to your predictions and your thoughts. Chris mentioned one there about the rat, about potentially about Laris being a warg, and people have had similar thoughts as well. So Matt Scott, who actually used to work on Thronecast, actually, as an editor. This is how much people that work on Thronecast love Thrones, is that they write into the podcast years later. So thanks, Matt, saying loving house. Oh, I'm not going to get Steve right and read out all the compliments. But he said, here's a speculative shout. Wonder if a younger Melisandre will make an appearance in this series. She's potentially the only Game of Thrones character old enough to. It'd be cool, wouldn't it? I think she's from somewhere east, like Ashai or somewhere, maybe a triarchy-related sorceress. So yeah, he's right. Melisandre's knocking around somewhere. Lisa Fury said, I can't handle another time jump. Well, Lisa, we think there's another one next week.
Apparently the last one. There was an interview with Ryan about season 2 on Variety, and he said there's no time jumps in season 2.
Right, which leads us to think so we're going to see adult Aegon and
like
Aemond
like late teens, early I guess,
yeah. But it's probably with the cast that will take it forward for seasons ahead, I would imagine. Yeah. So just sit tight. You'll be through it.
Someone also told me this morning that we talk about the intro most weeks, that when someone dies in the show, in the intro, their sigil gets flooded with blood. So Lena, her sigil, hers and Matt, because they sort of branch out where their kids are, is kind of filled with blood. So I think when we have a jump in next week, when people have grown up and there might be more kids, or that there'll be even more. I mean, I find it impossible to keep track of that intro, but there is stuff there if you can pay attention.
I think the confusing thing is because in Thrones it was all just houses, whereas actually with this one it's actually individuals.
Yeah,
and I think it's quite difficult to know. Everyone's got their own like trademark moniker or kind of like logo.
Yeah, I think it is tricky.
And the branding's a bit similar for me. It's quite tricky to keep a cap on. Claire Mullins on YouTube said the way Laris picked a flower when he said to Alicent, "I know you'll reward me," I took that to mean that once the king is dead, they'll marry. Ooh. That's quite a good. That's a good theory. Lives Viola, good name. Love the show. Oh no, I've done it. Sorry. Prince Daemon, the Rogue Prince, is perfect. My favourite character, Matt Smith, is just superb. I don't think you'll find many people disagreeing with you there. What else have we had? So Davina Allison on Twitter said, started listening to Dragoncast about people who we think we shouldn't be rooting for but are, and thinking about how many parents are now regretting calling their child Khaleesi because they didn't wait until the end of Game of Thrones. So if you called your kid Laris after episode 1, I think there's going to be a few Ottos who are going to get kicked in the playground in about 15 years' time.
Yeah.
Stay safe, stay strong, stay with Lionel.
Yes.
Exactly. Blair, Strong, whichever, both. Exactly. You know what we need to do now? We need to look ahead at yet another time jump. Let's all take a moment to sit back and wash ourselves in next week's teaser for episode 8 of House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I know I say that every time. It looks like it's going to be quite sad. I think clearly Viserys is gone. Hopefully he gets a fitting goodbye. Sounds like Corlys is not looking too strong either. Looks like we talk about war. Presumably that's between the Velaryons and Targaryens. By the sounds of it, there is claims going everywhere. I'm sure I saw a shot of the murder cloak as well at one point.
I thought, hell yeah.
Yeah. What do we make of that? I mean, Gavin, you're exempt from discussing this because you've read the script. You know exactly what's going on. Chris.
So a couple of things, Viserys' voice is in there, but we saw Alicent and Otto both sitting on the throne. Rhaenyra said the Greens have dealt, or the Hightowers have dealt the first blow. So I think they're probably governing in his stead, which is obviously causing all kinds of problems. That looked like Corlys' brother. I think his name is something like Raymond or something, who was sort of there with them, Aemond, according to producer Connor. Obviously there's talks about who gets Driftmark. I suppose if he's kind of on his last legs. Just a real sense of it all about to kick off. I also saw a dragon egg. That was worth noting.
Yeah.
So someone's.
So that would be the dragon egg that they were waiting for one of the children,
so,
right?
But then I don't know how long they take to hatch. I don't know. It's like, I don't know what's going on with there. But
well, if you're Daenerys' dragons, centuries.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it looked great. It's really, Rhaenyra and Daemon are returning to King's Landing. Obviously, some time has passed. Interesting thing I want to note about the kids. Aemond with the eye patch has now got long hair. Aegon. Yeah. With 2 good eyes, 20/20 vision, Aegon, as he's known, has short hair now, which is a bit of a switcheroo, but,
Yeah. I do like the old the different Targaryen bombs.
But I do think
that's
that,
for sure.
that it's hard to kind of like. I just want to see like a chart of the ages of them and like who's.
Yeah. As kind of producer Connor's pointed out, Aegon looked way younger than young Aegon. You know, it's like
the guy with long hair, Aemond, looks about 35.
yeah.
I don't think that's actually the case though. I think there is, off the top of my head, I think there is quite a big age difference between the two of them.
Right.
Also, in real life.
Yeah, the kids look great. I thought the Jason, Luke, Rhaenyra's kids, obviously a lot great, and I suppose Joffrey will be quite a bit older. We might see him now. The third one.
It doesn't matter what show it is or anything. An eye patch just looks fucking boss, doesn't it?
It really does.
Just looks
it really
nails.
does.
Yeah. I was just thinking though,
Amazing.
Baby
Listen.
Joffrey was like the only person not invited to that funeral in episode 7.
Well, it's a bit like William and Kate not inviting their youngest to the Queen's funeral because he kind of kicked off, didn't he, at the coronation? Started pointing faces. I mean,
Viserys looking like spoilt milk. He managed to get out of there. Paddy,
Sorry, that's got me. That's brilliant.
Paddy, if you're listening, I apologise reservedly.
it does look like he moisturises just using cold ready brick.
Porridge. Anyway, it looks great.
But listen,
he had to get in the chair at 4:30 in the morning for that.
Oh my God.
I bet he did. I bet just getting up at 4:30 in the morning gets you halfway there, doesn't it? Yeah. Listen, Gavin, thank you so much for coming on, mate. It's been an absolute honour and a privilege to get like your insight and your opinions, and you know, I just love speaking to people that have been on and been in the show and have got as much passion and kind of and love for the universe as we all have. It's not always the case, so it's a delight when we meet someone like you.
Oh,
buddy.
cheers! Thanks very much. That's very kind of you to say. And to be fair, it didn't used to be like that. It's grown. It really has grown. I'd watched the first 5 series of Thrones, and I was kind of indifferent to it. I liked it. I thought it was brilliantly done, but I hadn't really fallen in love with the world. And then when I got the job and went back and watched another 80 hours worth of television, I think it really started capturing my imagination, and then turning up to film and just seeing thousands of people work on it so hard with so much love and commitment from every single department. It just rekindles your own kind of like, actually, this is really pretty special. Yeah.
And what a privilege to speak to you and to be on the.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll be keeping a close eye on what you're up to next. Anything on the horizon and that you're allowed to share?
I'm in. So I'm in the new Magic Mike film. Yeah, I don't.
This is about as far from typecasting as you can get.
I don't strip, which is a shame. I don't dance, which is a tragedy. So I'm in that. I think that comes out next year at some point. I've just finished filming something for Apple TV. I'm in Napoleon, the Ridley Scott film, for a flash in the pan. That comes out next year at some point.
Amazing.
Nice thing on the BBC.
Busy.
Look at that.
Doing a play at the National over Christmas as well, which is exciting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, lovely. Well, that's only down the road. We'll
Dragoncast night out, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be
a very good bar.
Yeah.
Gavin, thanks so much. Chris, thank you
Pleasure.
as always. See you next week for what again is going to be a whole lot to unpack. We've broken our record. Make no apologies. And thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let us know your theories down below on the YouTube comments, or get in touch with us at Dragoncast Pod, or all the usual places. We love hearing from you. It really makes a difference. Until next time, Dracarys. There will be a new episode of Dragoncast, home of House of the Dragon, every single week. Do us a favour, subscribe, like, leave us a comment, let us know what you think of the podcast. Follow us on Twitter at dragoncast.pod, or send us an email, dragoncast@daftdoris.com. Thanks very much.